Santiago Canyon College is an innovative learning community in Orange, California, with more than 260 certificate and degree programs. Santiago Canyon College is a proud sponsor of community programming and OC World.
OC World is made possible by the generous contributions of Marisla Foundation, Keith and Judy Swain Family Foundation, Wells Fargo Bank, the University of California, Irvine, Orange County Community Foundation, Farmers and Merchants Bank, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Grandfather, creator, grandmother, my ancestors, I stand on your sacred ground, the sacred land of my ancestors, the land of my mother village, Paturam. I will give you voice today, but I ask your permission and I ask your blessing. I ask that you journey with me, walk with me, fill my heart and my mouth with the words that you would have me or want me to say. I will tell you stories. Ancestors, I'm determined to break the grand silence that was inflicted on you. No one will silence me.
The word Paturam translates to navel sticking out, identifying this place as the mother village of the Ahashamen nation. For thousands of years, the Ahashamen people lived here along the coastlands of what we now know as Orange County, California. Today, this village is but a small representation of what it once was. However, it is important that it now serves as an educational, cultural, and historical meeting place. It features a dwelling, the traditional dwellings called kishas, and of course the all-important circle for community gatherings. Jerry Nieblas is a renowned Ahashamen storyteller. He traces his lineage to Putadim village here in San Juan Capistrano in Orange County, California. With deep roots in his ancestral heritage, Nieblas carries forward the cultural traditions and oral histories of the Ahashamen people. In sharing stories of his grandmother and his uncle Felipe, he fosters better understanding of Native perspectives on our common history, while bridging the past with our present.
My grandmother's name was Juana Ventura Albertina Garcia Nieblas. She's a direct descendant of this village, but also two other villages, Zajavit, which was east of San Juan Capistrano, and also the village of Panhe, which is at the far end of San Clemente on what is now the Camp Pendleton Marine Base. This was her mother village, though. I know of my 6 times great-grandparents, Zodut and Zoget. They had a daughter, Chigalia. Chigalia was 14 years old in 1776 when Mission San Juan Capistrano was established. And she was shortly after its founding, she was removed from our village of Patutam. She was brought into the new boundaries of this new foreign mission and was forced to change every part of her life. She would never be able to walk back. This comes my grandmother. Somebody I was very, very close to, someone I loved very much, but I was always very curious about my grandmother and my family. My grandmother was one who celebrated her Spanish heritage, her early California Rancho Yorba heritage, and also her colonial Mexicano heritage. She celebrated that, she lived it. They cooked the foods of those people. They did the dances and the songs of those people. But I noticed as a young boy, something dramatically changed in her body language and in the way she presented herself when anyone would bring up our Native American heritage. She wouldn't talk about it. She wouldn't have any discussions about it. I observed this for a long time. I would hear the whispers of our people being Native, being Juaneño, being a Hashimim, but that's as far as it would go, and there would be no other discussions about it. Finally, when I was in high school, senior in high school, I approached her one afternoon. I can remember the time really vividly in my mind. I was in her living room, and I looked at her, and this again was a woman I had a very close relationship with, was with every day. And we called her Nana. And I said, Nana, I want you to tell me about our Native American heritage. I want you to tell me about our Native American traditions and culture. Her whole facial expression changed. She never looked at me that way. She looked angry. She looked fearful. And she just stared at me for a long time and gave me no answer. And I was determined that I was going to break through this barrier that had gone on for a number of years. So I asked her again. I said, Nana, can you tell me about our family? I know about the Yorba, the Rancho. I know about the Rios, but I need to know about our native side. Finally, after a lot of looks, dirty looks, mad looks, unsure looks, fearful looks, she finally asked me in Spanish and English, which meant she was irritated. She asked me why I needed to know this. And I told her because I want to know about our people. I want to know about our family. And there was a long pause, and I said, Nana, I'm going to just get started with you. And I said, where were your parents from? Felipe and Florencia. Long pause, kind of a angry look on her face again, and she finally came out with a from here response. And I was hoping there would be more, but there was no more. So I waited a little while, and then I asked her again, okay, where were their parents from? Again, I got the same reaction, a long pause, and then finally she told me, from here. This went on several times. Finally, she told me in Spanish, I can't say it in Spanish, I would do it no justice in Spanish, but she told me, I want you to know that we've only taken the water from this land. We've known no other. That was my grandmother's way of telling me that we're from here. These are our roots, these are our people. After that was over, the doors opened, and I spent the next 5 years with her, and we went through every site here in San Juan Capistrano that had meaning and importance to our people. We went to our village sites, we went to the adobes, we went to the trails, we went to the homes, we went to the people. And at each stop, she told me the stories connected with them, the stories of our family, our connection with them, and the connection of the other families going back to our Native American heritage. The one thing that floored me during all this time and took me a little while to understand was the hurt that this very strong woman was feeling, the fear that she was going through in talking about this. That had been inflicted. That had been something that was done to her. That had been harm that was done to her by generations of the human element involved with Mission San Juan Capistrano. They were made to feel that their Native American past was dirty, that it was no good, that they were living scandalous lives, sacrilegious lives, that everything that they did was wrong, from their dress, their food, their talk, their language, their spirituality, everything was wrong. And they were made to feel that they were bad. And after so many generations of being told, you need to change, don't talk about anything, don't talk about your Native American past, it had a definite negative impact. And as a result, there started the grand silence of my people. The great-grandmother Oak, I started coming to this grandmother Oak as a child with my grandmother. She would visit these lands And the one thing that she did on these lands was the first thing, she would pull all the fresh mustard that came up. And I would question her about that and say, why are you pulling this mustard up? Why, you can go to Boheim Field, other fields in town and get the mustard. She said it was important to her to make sure that she took the food from this land to nourish her family as it had been done for generations. But the one thing she always did that stood out in my mind, and I didn't know its meaning for many years, was she would go to the great grandmother oak, and I would just stand back and watch her, and she would silently present herself to the great grandmother oak. And she'd spend a lot of time there. She'd be putting her hand on the trunk of the tree like I was doing, and probably saying her prayers, remembering our ancestors. Well, I know that's what she was doing. She told me that it represented our people, that it represented our story. And if you look at the trunk of the tree, it's all cracked, it's all split. And that tells the story, she said, of the struggles of our people. And it keeps continuing to go up the trunk of the tree. Sometimes the cracks are wide, sometimes not so wide. Again, representing the struggles of our people. But if you notice, she would tell me how big this tree is, how massive this tree is, the growth, the healthy growth, the new branches, the new producing of leaves. That represents our people going on. That was part of my story, breaking that grand silence. It all fell into place.
Jerry, we've arrived here at a very important gravesite, Felipe Garcia, who I believe is your great-grandfather.
Right.
Tell us a story about him.
I think that I probably got my activism from him. Felipe was not afraid to proclaim who he was and what he was. And like I said, when Nana Florencia and Felipe were married, he ID'd himself as a Juaneño and immediately had a bounty put on his head. It was more difficult for my family, of course, to accept that and constantly worry about him. But Felipe went on. He was who he was. He was Catholic. And he went through all the Catholic motions of Mass and all that. But when it came time, he was a remarkable person. When it came time for him to receive the sacraments of the sick, when he got sick, my Nana wanted him, of course, to go to confession. That's all part of everything that's done when you're ill.
Yes.
And he said that he just as soon confessed to a tree trunk as he would to a priest. That's just the individual he was. He was following traditions and culture. Also, he's remarkable in that he was still doing ceremony, practicing traditional ceremony, both off of Patutum, below the west hills up there, off of Oso Creek. He would meet down there with other men in the community to share a meal. My grandmother always talked about, my great-grandfather Felipe Ventura always talked about him. This is her dad, because they always feared that when he left on these gatherings where he was going to share a meal down at the creek with the men, that's not what he was doing. And they were afraid that he was going to be taken away.
Having a bounty placed on their heads made the fear surrounding the lives of Native people real. Governor John Bennett, California's first governor, declared, "The war of extermination will continue to be waged between the races until the Indian race becomes extinct, must be expected." This chilling statement underscores the deep-rooted injustices faced by the Native peoples.
I'm honored that my grandmother left me his abalone shell that he used ceremony and burned his sage and tobacco in.
Beautiful.
I have that.
Heidi Lucero is the tribal chairwoman of the Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, the Ahashaman Nation in San Juan Capistrano. Heidi's interests encompass a wide spectrum which includes environmental conservation, cultural revitalization, and as an anthropologist, she teaches in the American Indian Studies program at CSU Long Beach.
Miyuyam Natung Chairwoman Heidi Lucero Yaka non Ahashamaengoish P Mutsun Olonengoish non Alaunengoish Topamengoish P Goromengoish.
Good. Thank you for that introduction in beautiful language. Let's jump right into it. For our OC World viewers who may not be really aware of the Ahashaman Nation, which have lived here for thousands of years in this land we now call Orange County, would you share a little bit about your own ancestral family background related to the Ahashiman people in particular.
Yes, I come from the village of Alauna, which is at O'Neill Park. I also come from the village of Goromo, which is somewhere along Santiago Canyon in that area. We're not exactly sure the exact location. And I come from the village of Topam. My family grew up in San Juan Capistrano. My grandfather was the ranch foreman for Santa Margarita Ranch, and they lived out on the ranch area. They also had a house on Los Rios Street and a house down on Ortega Highway where they lived. My great-grandmother, who is the Ahashiman in my family, she was born at the Para Adobe on Ortega Highway on your way out to Antonio Parkway, so just before you get there.
Yes.
On the right-hand side, so she was born there. She had 13 children, a lot of children, so my grandma was one of them, so, and then my mother after that, and then me, so.
Very, very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you for that. You know, the Ahashiman, I learned also, were among the first natives that were inducted into the Spanish mission system in 1776. How do you see now, as a historical preservation officer for the Ahashiman people, the historical legacy of the disruption and trauma of that period regarding the Ahashiman people?
My belief is that it was not the greatest time for the Ahashiman, but it's part of our history, and it's something that we have to acknowledge and something that we have to embrace. We don't have to necessarily like what happened in the past. There was a lot of atrocities that occurred during that period, but there were a lot of great things that came out of it as well. There were a lot of Ahashiman that wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that mission system that came in and embraced them. And a lot of our relatives now are continuing to, be part of the Catholic Church. And so I think that we have to embrace those past atrocities and that past history to make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future.
Very good. And how do you see perhaps today the role of the mission playing in making people in the public more aware of this history? Are they able to do this?
I think that, the tribe has had a really good relationship with the mission. We do events with the mission. We have our basket weavers that go there once a month and talk with the many, many children that come through the mission. We're always invited to events. We bring family members there. We bring other people from the community in there to make sure that our history is being properly represented. Michelle Lawrence, that works at the mission, she is amazing at making sure that there's accuracy and inclusivity with the tribe. We have tribal members that are bell ringers at the mission. The mission is always open for us to do ceremony there. Every year on the anniversary of the Great Stone Church, when it fell during the earthquake, we have a private ceremony and a public ceremony acknowledging all the Ahashiman that perished in that event. We have ceremonies at the Father Sarah Chapel. In fact, my great-grandmother was married there, and my great-grandmother and great-grandfather had their 50th anniversary at the church as well.
It's really impressive, Heidi, to me that your positive perspective on and the engagement with the mission today, that's gratifying because it's still there and it is part of the Ahashiman history, and to incorporate it in a positive manner that you've just expressed, I'm impressed with. I like. Could you share with us and our OC World viewers a little bit about the significance of traditional tattoos in the Ahashiman? And I also know that you're an expert in teaching about indigenous traditions of tattoos, and you were recently in Alaska, so share a little bit about that background in regarding the significance of the tattoos.
So the tattoos represent your family lineage, your role in the tribe. They can depict whether you're married, the social ranking in your tribe. And a lot of the tattoos come also from historical documentation that we have on the practice of tattoos.
Is there any special significance to the chin tattoos, or that's part of the, as you indicated, your identity?
Part of the identity, yeah. And I have ones on my eyes that represent the past, our broken past, and then the present, and then the long line of our future.
I'm going to shift gears now to your important role as tribal chairwoman of the Juaneño Band of Mission Indians, the Ahashiman people. Could you share with us what are some of your priorities in that role? And I know it's a very important role. And how do you see what you want to accomplish as your chairwoman role?
So, the goals that we have are not necessarily just my goals. These are the goals of the tribe. And so in my position, I work at the behest of the tribe, what the tribe wants to do. So our number one priority right now is seeking federal recognition. We have an open petition for federal recognition. In 2011, we received a denial for federal recognition. And so now we appealed that decision, and our petition was remanded back to the Assistant Secretary, that's where it sits right now.
The Assistant Secretary should be somebody good right now.
Yeah, and so we are, they're waiting for us to supplement our petition, and we have a lot of new evidence that we're going to be submitting. So, I mean, it's promising.
That's very good. I know it was a very arduous process the first time around. It took many, many years. I think 20 years or something before the denial came down in 2011.
Yes.
And the denial was based largely on so-called blood quantum, or the degree of blood quantum in the natives, in the enrolled membership. Is there another method beyond blood quantum that a tribe can receive federal recognition? And if there is, what is it?
So blood quantum, they actually don't use blood quantum anymore.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so they use lineal descent. So you have to, there is a definition in our proposed findings that you have to generation by generation back link to a historic ancestor that was identified as Indian.
Which is not an easy task.
Yeah, in the mission San Juan Capistrano records, or to a village site, and or having lack of a surname, so identifying their native name without a last name. And now with the new Washburn regulations, the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Office of Federal Acknowledgement, they evaluate criteria E, which is that lineal descent criteria first. Oh. So they, when they re-evaluate our petition, that is the criteria that they'll be evaluating first. And that's the criteria that we've really worked on really hard to make sure that our membership is well over 80%.
Land acknowledgments are simply a formal way of paying special oral tribute to the recognition that we are standing on native land. Today, land acknowledgments have become more common, especially among the nation's educational institutions, as well as many other community organizations. How do you see the land acknowledgement aspect? As positive or helpful?
I do think it's positive. I do think it's helpful. For myself, I've helped develop quite a few land acknowledgments. I have a lot of very specifics that I like to make sure that are included. Traditional language, acknowledging the past name of things. I'll give you an example. Saddleback Mountain is, for us, that's called Kalaupa. So anytime something is near there, or even I did one for Saddleback College, I said you need to make sure that you include the native name of that, what your institution is named after. It's named after Kalaupa, not Saddleback.
The land back movement, where parcels of land are deeded back to a native group, has also recently become more frequent. Lucero talks about the many positive benefits that can follow for the people as well as for the ecology of the deeded land. She also comments on the continuing problem of conflicts among different individuals and leadership councils concerning who, in fact, can legitimately represent the Ahashimen people.
I think that the land back issue is something that's really important. Even a small amount of land, like 6 acres, really sets a precedent. It's a place that we can go to have ceremony. It's a place that we can go and plant native plants. It's a place, it could be a place of healing for us. Some of those lands, especially Bolsa Chica, has a really difficult past, and the land does need a lot of healing. But when it comes to legitimacy of the groups that have taken that land back, there is no legitimacy there.
Why is it so important at this time, Heidi, to break the grand silence, as Jerry refers to it?
So breaking the grand silence, for a lot of years, we tried to kind of be low-key about things and be inclusive of all of the people who claim to be part of the community, and that hasn't worked out for us very well. And so I think that now is the time and to speak the truth. Not everybody can be in that position. It's a very tough position to be in, to be openly speaking the truth. Comes with a lot of lashback from people. It comes from with a lot of broken relationships that have you've developed over the years. But the truth is the truth, and we have to stand by that. And so it's the time now. I think I'm a strong enough person to be able to stand in those truths, not just for me, but for my community, for my tribe, and for my ancestors.